Hold on. I see a couple of people up there. So, this is my, I guess you could say, my first official YouTube run. Let me make sure I'm live. Got some folks on. I can't see the chat. Can see. Okay, all messages are visible. Okay, so first I wanted to start out by saying that I made a pact with my spirits, right? Because this is the beginning of my Jupiter return, Jupiter in Pisces. And Jupiter can be overdoing it. You know, it could be greed. It could be needing too much of attention, being too needy. So I made a pact with my spirits that if I do this, that I'm going to go on raw, no makeup, humble as hell, because actually this is like supposed to be my humble day. Like I'm supposed to be very humble for the rest of the week, right? And it's not because somebody told me I needed to be humble, but it's because I told myself I needed to be humble, right? I want to make sure that I stay on the path of balance. I know that it's easy to get off of balance, especially when Jupiter's involved. So remember that. You know, we like to get excited and we're like, oh, we're having a Jupiter return and Jupiter's coming up on some personal planets, maybe for you and stuff like that. And it's easy to overdo it, right? It's easy to break spiritual laws. It's easy to break laws. You know what I mean? And then in essence creating more karma that comes back at you later on. So by the time you get to the end of your Jupiter return, you don't lost everything you got at the beginning. You know what I mean? So you don't want that to happen, and I don't want that to happen. So I essentially told myself, I said, I'm gonna go on raw. Like this is my first live and I don't know how long, no makeup, no nothing, just raw information, right? So I'm gonna get to it. Peace. Strictly raw information. So Jupiter in Pisces, it's already beginning to play out. Transits don't just happen when a transit happens in astrology, right? That transit starts to happen months before that the actual transit itself. You start to get a preview, right? And if you're like me, or you're like other astrologers, cardiologists, and stuff like that, or if you're just psychic and you're really in tune, you've already been taking notes, like you've already been taken into account, and you're like, okay, this is playing out for this Jupiter and Pisces transit, right? So I've already been taking notes, and it's amped up, you know. So already we're seeing examples of religious extremism, religious terrorism, what we like to call it, because everybody's looking at this Israel thing, Israel and the Palestinians, and they've amped up their stuff in accordance to this Jupiter transit. So they're feeling righteous, like Jupiter will have you feeling righteous and judgmental, judging other people and thinking that they're not worthy, and thinking that you have the power to just step on somebody, you know what I mean, and step on their stuff, which is breaking boundaries, because Jupiter can have an issue with boundaries, you know what I mean, and overstepping your boundaries. So already we're seeing that start to play out. And then someone just tagged me a little while ago that they're not protesting in New York, you know? So that's to show you that this is a pretty big thing and a pretty big deal, especially because right now we're dealing with this big karmic reckoning of what's going on in the earth. And that's the theme of this Jupiter in Pisces, karmic reckoning, right? And how did I come to that realization that that's the theme of this transit? Well, in cardology, and what I do is I look at the day that the transit takes place, right? And the card that is ruling that day is going to tell me everything about the nature of that transit, right? So this transit for us occurs May 13th, right? And that's a 6 of diamonds day, which just so happens to be my Jupiter card, right? So I'm having so many Jupiter vibes go on right now personally, because I'm entering into my Jupiter return. My Jupiter card happens to be the 6 of diamonds, And this transit takes place on the Six of Diamonds day, right? So it's extremely highlighted and important in my life. And I know all of the lessons that are associated with the Six of Diamonds. And we're going to talk about that as well. But yeah, so essentially, this Six of Diamonds in my spread in Jupiter says that I was going to hit the peak point of my life when we have this major transit. And here we go. We're having this major transit, and we're having it on my Jupiter card. So this is really entering in a peak period of my life, right? So, but we're going to talk about how it affects your life as well. So I've been talking about Jupiter in Pisces on Instagram and Twitter. And I mentioned how Jupiter in Pisces, Pisces is water and Jupiter is like the bubble that comes in, that energy that comes into the water and creates that bubble. So Jupiter in Pisces equals bubbles, right? So what we're seeing right now is we're seeing bubbles left and right. We're seeing tech bubbles, seeing crypto bubbles, we're seeing real estate bubbles. We're seeing things, they're even talking about, what is it? SPACs and all of these things. Everything is a bubble, right? And what is a bubble? Well, a bubble is, in when we're talking about a bubble, we're talking about like, namely a financial bubble. We're dealing with money, right? So we're talking about these extremes, and this is like blowing up, but everything that goes up must go down, right? But when things are going up in a bubble, nobody pays attention to the fact that it's got to go down. Everybody is hyped up. Everybody is excited, and they're pouring a lot of money into these bubbles, right? So that's why we have what's going on, this whole crypto thing that's been going on since the turn of the year, right? We've had Doge, we've had, Bitcoin has been, for a while, but we've had Doge and we've had all of these other little coins now that people are really, really pushing, and they're hyped about it. And again, yes, these are the bubbles, right? But the difference is we have Saturn on the back end of us in Aquarius, right? Not too far back, right? So Saturn already has laid the foundation to make things a little bit more stickier, right? When Saturn's there, you party, but you don't party as hard as you normally party. You party with a little sense in your head, right? You're like, I'm gonna drink, but the cops are right here standing outside of the bar, and I know if I pull off and I drunk too much, I'm gonna get into trouble. So I'm gonna drink, but I'm not gonna get drunk, right? So that's the energy of Saturn being not too far behind, but we got Jupiter here in the waters of the unlimited. Pisces is unlimited. So when you go into a buffet and it's everything is $9.99, that's unlimited. It's like, let me jump right in and just eat to my heart's content. That's Pisces. You can't see the bottom. It's an endless pit. You cannot see the bottom, and you get this feeling that there is no bottom, but there is a bottom. And when you hit it, you're in shock. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't see that coming, So what's helpful in Pisces is spirituality, right? Is getting in tune with those spirits and other dimensions, and whatever your spiritual base is, etc. Because the spirits can see what we can't see. You know what I mean? And there has to be someone in your life that can see. And it's not even just the spirits. It's people like your loved ones or whatever. They can see what you can't see, right? And this is why we get into relationships, right? Relationships oftentimes reflect the things that we cannot see in ourselves, right? So you're definitely going to be seeing a lot of relationships around right about now, and a lot of strange relationships. We'll talk about that too. But you're going to be seeing a lot of relationships because, the spirits are sending people in your life to reflect back the things that you cannot see. You know what I mean? So if you're the type of person, if you're a spiritual person, you're looking with a spiritual eye, you're looking at a relationship as a reflection of what's going on in yourself, and you're not paying too much, you're not projecting. You are projecting, but you're not falling for the projections. You're looking for what's coming back at you, and you're looking and you're saying, what's going on with me? If this is going on the outside, how does that relate to me, right? So a lot of relationships, definitely a lot of relationships, because what Pisces does is, everybody knows that Pisces is the rose-colored glasses, right? So it takes away all of those biases that you have that keep you from being in a relationship. Because the reason that you're not in a relationship is not because you can't get anybody. It's because you felt nobody was worthy or good enough, or they weren't your type, or whatever the case may be. But Pisces will wash all of that away. You know what I mean? So you'll find yourself in a love situation with someone that you may not typically be in a situation if the Piscean energy wasn't so strong, right? And for women, Jupiter represents the husband and the father, right? So not only may you find yourself in a relationship, you may actually find yourself married or getting married during this time, because you're throwing away your biases, right? And throwing away your biases, and you're opening up your heart to, to the possibilities and the limitless potential, right? Again, but you still have to tap into the spirit, the gifts that Pisces has to give you in order for you to be able to see, right? So either you have a very, very tight connection with your inner guidance, or you need to have some type of spiritual guidance to help you through this time, to prevent you from going overboard, Jupiter, and jumping headfirst into a situation without reason, because you do need some reason, to be involved, to have your left and right brain balanced. You know what I mean? So you can have a balanced, situation. And balance is hard, it's difficult. And balance is going to be even more difficult with Jupiter and Pisces. Balance is going to be very difficult at this time. And it doesn't even matter if you don't have quote unquote planets in Pisces, because Pisces rules a certain area of your life. You know what I mean? So it's good to have your natal chart so that you can see, what area of my life does Pisces rule? So Pisces is also my ascendant. So it literally rules my outlook on life. You know what I mean? It literally rules my vision, inner, outer, everywhere, So it's very, very important for me to have some type of spiritual grounding, because that's the only kind of grounding you can get in Pisces. The only type of grounding you can get in Pisces is spiritual grounding. You know what I mean? And a lot of times you have to deny your own self, deny yourself. And that goes along with Jupiter. If you want to play the Jupiter game right, you're going to have to deny yourself. You know what I mean? Literally, because there's going to be so much that you desire and you feel is capable of getting, and that may be the case, and it is absolutely true. However, do we need all of the cake or do we need a slice of the cake? What happens when we eat the whole cake? We get a bellyache, right? What happens when we eat too much? What happens when we drink too much? It's not good, right? So how do we get balance? Well, you have to work on loving and accepting yourself, and you got to work on denying yourself. You know what I mean? Saying no to yourself is key here. Saying no, right? We could say no to other people, but this is going to be the time when you're going to have to say no to yourself, and no is going to lead to more good, right? So let's get back to the Six of Diamonds. So the card that rules this transit is the Six of Diamonds. And one of my good friends, Ocean Femi, she was the one and she's actually was a student of mine, and she's a cardology coach now. She was the one that brought it to my attention that the Six of Diamonds is the card of, in my tradition, in Yoruba tradition, in Ifa, it's Ire. It means Ire, right? And what Ire means is this whole state of of being. Like everything is in balance, everything is good when it's Ire. You know, when you have Ire, you have everything you need and probably more, right? But the thing with getting everything you need and more is you tend to take it for granted. You tend to not be grateful. You tend to get bored. You know, sometimes you can get greedy and want even more and more and more. So that is going to be a key lesson during this time, is monitoring your greed and replacing your greed with gratitude as often as possible. If you can become a zealot that is grateful for what they have, then you will do very well during this time and you will do nothing but get more. You know what I mean? So your needs are going to be taken care of. And that goes for everybody. Our basic needs are going to be taken care of. You know what I mean? And during this time, the things that you've worked hard for are going to manifest as something wonderful in your life. You know what I mean? So if you've been working hard at some project in your life, this is the time when it can bear fruit. If you've been working hard throughout your whole life, because the Six of Diamonds is the card of retirement. And we know we can't retire without money. We had to have laid the foundation for retirement for that to happen. So this is a good time for people who have laid a foundation. You know what I mean? I don't care if you started a project 15 years ago and you left it. This is the time when that project can actually take root and bring you the fruits of the things that you expected. So this is actually a very, very good time. You know what I mean? But however, sixes deal with time, and time can be slow. It's not that time is slow, it's that you begin to anticipate an event that you know is going to happen, but it doesn't happen when you think it's going to happen. And that's what makes you feel like that thing is slow. You know what I mean? So, all of my psychics that are watching, think about how when you know something is going to happen, like you feel like this is going to happen this time, right? And it doesn't happen at that time, you know, but later on it happens and you realize that your timing was a little off. And that's one of the things that I see in cardology. Because you can have a year where you have a 10 of diamonds in cardology, which is ruled by Jupiter. That energy is so bright that it's felt years before. You understand? So if you got a 10 of diamonds in Jupiter coming up 5 years from now, but it's in the same cycle, you're going to feel it from day one when you enter that 7-year cycle. You're going to feel it in the Mercury year, right? And you're going to get so excited. You can be like, oh my God, I'm going to be rich. You know, so every opportunity that comes your way, because a lot of these opportunities are going to just start falling in your lap, you're going to think that that's it, that's it, that's it, that's it, that's it. None of it's it, right? And then what happens after that? You get depressed because none of these opportunities panned out, right? You had 10 opportunities fall in your lap. None of them panned out. You got scammed. You put your money into something you weren't supposed to put your money into. You got scammed by this person. You didn't get your money back. You got in a get rich quick scheme here, there, and all that other stuff. And what led you to do these things is this magnificent energy down the line that's coming at you, but it didn't get there yet. So it's that simple, right? So, which is why learning cardology is so awesome, because there are plenty of guarantees, and you can pretty much tie down to the moments of when something is going to happen when you're doing cardology, right? So, at any rate, those sixes indicate fate. And fate simply means that at a specific time when all conditions are in alignment, this is going to happen, right? And all of these conditions are dependent on all of these little things. Like, part of your fate may be dependent on somebody else you ain't even met yet. They have to do a certain thing in order for somebody else to do their thing, for somebody to do their thing, for it to get to you so that this thing can happen. Because we're all a part of this thread of karma, right? So these people haven't shown up yet. And what happens is you dream about people. You dream about those people. One of those people could be a celebrity. Go figure. It could be a celebrity. It could be a politician. A politician has to write this bill for this to happen, for your company to do X, Y, Z, for your success to come. All of it has to happen, and it hasn't happened to people haven't shown up to the party yet. They all got to do their little pieces. So what happens with you is you feel that abundant 10 of diamonds energy, and you go running out doing things. Well, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do this. I can speed it up. Maybe this needs to happen. Do you think I need to do this? I mean, it's already written and in alignment. You just need to calm the hell down. You need to sit your ass down. And you probably got work you need to do. The work that you need to do in the sixes is past work, not future work, right? So you don't create new work for yourself. You go back and you finish old shit. You know what I mean? So that might mean cleaning out your karmic closet, cleaning out your life, removing people, all of that. You always know what you need to do, because those things tend to be the hardest and most difficult, right? So preparing means going back, and that's the other side of karma. Going back, finishing up things, tying up contracts, tying soul contracts with people. You know what I mean? All of that, finishing whatever needs to be finished and complete. And by the time you do all of that, you're ready. You know, you're ready, and it also makes you more patient. When you work on your karma and you work on the things in the past and you complete things, it makes you more patient. And then you start to focus more on the moment. So you focus on the moment, you do the things that you love to do until that 10 of diamonds thing is coming. You know what I mean? It's like this event is still coming. This money is still coming. So in the meanwhile, I'm working on my karma. I'm fixing some things, and I'm discovering some things about myself. And I didn't put, hey, I'm back. I thought I put do not disturb. But anyway, so you're cleaning out your karma, you're fixing things in the past, and in the meantime, you're learning more about yourself and more about the things that you enjoy doing in the moment, and you do those things, right? And you continue to do those things. And then guess what? You've discovered that you have a talent for art, and you started doing this piece of art. And this piece of art led to something greater. And that might be your 10 of diamonds. Or you started writing a book, and this book led to something greater. And that might be your 10 of diamonds. Either way, you learned how to live in the moment. And you learn how to live in the moment by cleaning up the past. Because you appreciate the moment more when you work on the other stuff that needs to go. You begin appreciating the moment, and you begin appreciating your time, right? And you stop giving your time to people who are trying to hog your time, people who have a problem abusing other people's time, like narcissists, because they want you to use your time to give them attention. But you start to value your time more. And as you value your time more, then your value goes up, your worth goes up, your worthiness goes up, and now you're ready for whatever it is that's trying to shower itself in your life. It's a whole process. I know people think getting rich is not a process. They think it's just, and yes, people just turn around all of a sudden, hit the lottery, and then they're rich, and then they lose it, right? So, but building this wealth that's going to be forever in your life is a process. And it's a process that starts now. And you got to be ready for it. So, Jupiter and Pisces, y'all, this is what we're talking about here. Hey, because a lot of you are going to have some amazing opportunities in your life now. A lot of you are going to achieve wealth. A lot of you are going to get these miracles in your life because this is a time of miracles. Jupiter and Pisces is big miracles. You know what I mean? And we've been through so much the last couple of decades that we're pretty much all ready for the miracles and the big miracles. One of the things I often tell people is you want to watch celebrities because what celebrities are a celestial mirror on where we're going, where we're headed. The celebrities get the first rays of light from those beneficent stars, right? And then they take those rays of light and they echo it out. And that's where you get Hollywood and you get all these visualizations, you get movies, you get songs, you get things that peer into the future. They represent the future. Celebrities represent the future, right? So what we've been noticing is during the past couple of decades is that celebrities are getting wealthier and wealthier. You know what I mean? Seriously. I remember a time when you made an album, you might make $1 million. And a whole lot of celebrities back in the days, they didn't make any money. But now you got billionaire celebrities. You know what I mean? So the game has changed. And that's because the portal that is allowing that light is bigger and it's shining through. So they're showing you that a wealthier time for all of us is coming. You know what I mean? Literally. A wealthier time for everyone is coming. So they're showing you the light. They're showing you these things. So this is indicative to me that there's a good period, almost like a golden age coming for us and actually here, And of course, it doesn't take all of the suffering away because suffering comes from within, and we're still traumatized. And when you're still traumatized, you don't know how to turn it off. You don't know that things are actually getting better. You still think things are bad. You still think things are worse. You're still imagining a horrible future. And in the same token, you're creating a horrible future in reality for yourself, right? So being in the age of the sixes, you have to be very careful about what you say. You have to be careful about the hexes that you put out there. You know what I mean? Because you're creating these new realities and you're creating realities that have to be experienced by people. People are going to step into these realities and experience them like they're an amusement park, So wouldn't you rather create realities that are better, that are more loving, more happiness, etc., rather than realities of suffering, fear, pain, all of that? You know what I mean? This is the war that's going on right now. This is what's happening right now, And you have to be very, very, very careful because Jupiter and Pisces, that Piscean energy is magical. But it's also can magically create a hell. The 12th house of the zodiac can be heaven or hell. You know what I mean? Depending on where your mind is, it can be both. So you can create hell, and hell on earth can be created at this time in certain places. So again, it's up to you to create the reality that you want to live and experience, and you want to experience with others at this time. So back to the Jupiter and Pisces. I talked about the bubbles. I mentioned the real estate bubbles, the tech bubbles, the crypto bubbles. Absolutely all of these bubbles are popping up. You know what I mean? You're going to see it in the real estate markets, of course. You're going to see prices of properties go up and up and up and up and up, right? You're going to see housing go up and up and up and up and up, and you're going to see a lot of homeless. This year is a 5 of Hearts year, right? And people who follow me, they know that I've been talking about the 5 of Hearts. I mentioned that as the homeless card, right? That's the gypsy card, right? So it's going to create new realities for people. Some realities are that people are not going to want to be tied down to a home or an apartment, and they're going to get a mobile home, or they're going to get an RV, or they're going to live in their van, or they're going to live in their car, or they're going to live in a tent, right? And from another perspective, these are various levels of homelessness, right? You, from one side, might look at it and say, that person looks like a homeless person. They live in a van, right? But when Jupiter's in Pisces, everybody's looking like, oh, this is great. You know, I could fix up my van. I can make it look like whatever. His van looks beautiful. You know, I want to live like that too. There's, you know, there is a lot more optimism for it, right? But then there's still the judgmental side of Jupiter, right? So the judgmental side of Jupiter with Saturn on the heels is going to say, is this a safe place for children? You got kids. Are your kids being taken care of? You know what I mean? Are they going to school? You know, is this disrupting their school? You know, so wherever you go, judgment follows, laws follow, you know, to maintain balance, right? So if that's a lifestyle that you want to adopt, you have to create a plan. You know, you have to create a plan. Jupiter will have you jumping into the waters without a plan. And then it will slow you down so much that you don't realize that something else is catching up to you. So you have those types of real estate stuff. But then you have the other side where you have big opulent homes, right? But the Five of Hearts is not a favor of kind of living by yourself in a big opulent home. So what you're going to have is the bigger homes, you're going to have people coming together in communities to live in that home. So you might have a big old mansion, 10, 20 people living in that mansion. You know what I mean? So those are the types of scenarios that you start to see, like co-living, cohabitating, etc., right? Because the Six of Diamonds has a very strong Ten of Hearts, right? As a matter of fact, the Six of Diamonds has a Ten of Hearts in Venus. So that's big families living together. Like, let's come together and let's get a place together, you know, or let's have an extended, let's get some land and let's live on this land in it as an extended family, right? That's so Piscean too. You know what I mean? Co-living, you know, hospitals, jails, hotels, all places where people live or come to stay for a certain period of time with other people, right? So if you're in real estate, you're thinking you need to be getting into multifamilies, you need to be getting into apartment buildings, you need to be getting into anything that's going to accommodate multiple people, right? And especially shelters, right? During this time, homeless shelters. But you got to think of how would you do a homeless shelter in the future? It would be a temporary housing, but it'd be futuristic of some sort. It would be, you know, you'd make sure to have cameras and maybe co-working spaces and stuff like that. These are the types of visions that you're seeing right now in terms of housings, etc. This would also be a time for another boom in Airbnb type businesses, and those types of things should definitely bubble again as well. Airbnb has had their bubble before, and they'll bubble again. Because there's going to be a lot of people looking for more temporary housing because they can't either afford permanent housing, or they don't qualify for certain housing some places, or they're on the move. So they're going to be looking for more temporary. That Five of Hearts is the gypsy. So temporary housing and temporary domiciles like Airbnb and places like that are going to do very well during this time. So I mentioned that. I also talked about your actual physical being, right? Big girls rule Jupiter and Pisces. You know what I mean? Pisces tends to deal with your outlook on beauty. You know what I mean? Anything to do. I know people think of Venus as beauty and Venusian stuff, and that's more like artistic beauty and stuff like that. But when you're talking about someone's their sense of beauty and stuff like that, and that dreamy beauty, that captivating beauty. You're thinking about that Piscean beauty. You know what I mean? You're thinking about that Neptune, like that la la la, like, oh my gosh, you see the cartoons with the guy's eyes start pumping out with the hearts and stuff like that. And then when you have Jupiter, which is enlargement, engorgement, and big, right? You already have Uranus in Taurus, right? Which is more feminine stuff. Taurus is more feminine energy, and Uranus is a different type. It's a higher scope, a higher octave of feminine energy, and so you're going to be seeing big booties, right? Like extraordinary big booties. So, girls getting butt jobs or just growing butts naturally, because your booty will naturally grow during this time. And then, Jupiter and Pisces, it's more of a lateral kind of thing. Like there are going to be some competition, but the competitive sports are going to be more leaning towards the water stuff. You know what I mean? Water sports and stuff like that, because Jupiter's like competitive sports. So swimming, you're going to have more people getting into swimming, taking swimming classes and stuff like that, swim competitions and things of that nature. But you're also going to have people who are going to be sitting down more, right? And your booty's going to spread already, and lots and lots and lots of sweets and good food, and I've already seen that start like A1, like just whatever. However, when all of this comes together, this also becomes a really great time for you to work out. A really great time for you to get that body that you do want. A really good time for you to compete in sports that may be difficult for you any other time. Sports will be better. Jupiter and Pisces, it'll feel better. You know what I mean? It'll have an overall better feeling, because, some of us, we might work out and you might deal with the pain and this and that and the no pain, no gain. But now this is more about overcoming that by using spiritual forces, by using meditation, by using mental, your inner faculties, etc., and by being driven by some ideal, like some ideal vision of yourself will be driving you to achieve and help you overcome the obstacles that are preventing you from being that or becoming that person. So a lot more of that, will pop up as well. And I'm trying to see, it was so much, but these are some of the things that I talked about on Instagram that I wanted to, and I wrote about on Twitter, that I wanted to kind of get into and delve into a little bit deeper. One of the things I do miss from going live, of course, is, here I see you. I'm missing, yeah, here's all of my chats that I was missing, etc. Hey. And somebody mentioned trust. There's definitely going to be a lot of distrust. Jupiter and Pisces, it breeds a lot of grounds for distrust. And the reason that distrust even becomes a thing is because this is a time when you got to learn how to create your inner space of trust, like your inner grounding, whatever it is that grounds you to help you to make decisions that you're good with. You know what I mean? So you don't want to make rash decisions quickly. You don't want to feel like you have to make a decision about something right away that comes and looks really great. You know what I mean? You want to take your time to make a decision, maybe take a day. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you could be under the influence of a day and it can make you really excited about certain things. But then the next day comes and you're not as excited, right? So wait. You know what I mean? You want to delay your decisions. That's the best advice you can get during this time, is to delay your decisions. The sixes are about quote unquote delays, right? So delay your decision. Take your time with your decisions. Do not rush into certain things. Do not rush into relationships. Do not, if somebody pops the question, tell them I got to think about it. You know what I mean? All of that. Delay your decisions. I think that that's a very important, that's probably one of the best pieces of advice you could get right now during this time, is to delay your decision. If somebody wants to marry you, wait. Tell them, okay, we'll get married. Let's plan a wedding a year from now, or at minimum 6 months. You know what I mean? That type of thing. And now, if you're going to get married right away, then be good with the fact that maybe this is not a forever. Maybe you'll get married, and maybe you'll be married 2 or 3 years. And if you feel like you need to leave that marriage, get divorced and start all over again. It's okay. You know what I mean? But don't set yourself up for disappointments. That's the flip side of the Six of Diamonds, is disappointment and depression, right? So there's going to be a tremendous amount of depression during this time and disappointment. But don't set yourself up for it. Depression always tends to be something we set ourselves up for, because we are attached to outcomes. We are attached to people. Depression comes out of attachment, right? And unhealthy attachment is even worse. So break the attachments now. You know what I mean? Even if you have to start a relationship off on another tone, break the attachment to the relationship and to the person. You know what I mean? And that way you won't suffer depression when it has to end in some abrupt way in your life. You can let it go. So this is going to be a hard time for people to let it go. Jupiter and Pisces, there's going to be court cases coming out to force people to let stuff go. You know what I mean? Pay attention to the signs and pay attention to what Spirit is trying to show you. More importantly, if you're trying to do something during this time and you're being met with tons of oppositions, then something has to adjust. Something about what you're doing has to change. It may not necessarily mean that that thing is not going to happen or doesn't happen. There's an adjustment that needs to be made. So sit down and figure out what that adjustment is, because that's going to be key and critical and very important. And once you figure out what that adjustment is, you might see how easy the energy begins to flow now, because you made the adjustment. Being able to make adjustments during this time is going to be another one of your biggest devices and biggest tools. Make adjustments. Maybe it's not this, maybe it's this. Maybe something needs to change to make it this. But be willing to make an adjustment. Be willing to change the plan. Be willing to change up. Be willing to transform. That is being God, especially during this time. Being willing to make a change. Think about it. Think about the Bible and how, God had to, quote unquote, in the Bible, if that's what you believe in, but just even theoretically, had to make decisions like, let me destroy the city. That's an adjustment. You know what I mean? That's a hard adjustment. How could that not be a difficult adjustment, destroying an entire city of people? You know what I mean? And that's really symbolic of, okay, I created something and it's not going right. I might need to wipe the slate clean and start fresh. And that's how difficult it is, right? So don't be afraid to do that. You know what I mean? And don't be afraid to make adjustments. Start making adjustments today. Start tomorrow. As a matter of fact, because the transit begins tomorrow, start putting into practice these things that I'm telling you. Start putting them into practice tomorrow, right? So tomorrow, what are you going to do? You're going to practice non-attachment, right? You're going to work on your karma. You're going to look back and see what things need to be fixed. Six of Diamonds is finances. So it might be your credit. It might be your taxes. You might need to make an adjustment in your taxes, and you might need to fix your credit, or you might need to pay off a debt. You know what I mean? All of those things, good practices during that time, because it's going to be harder. It's going to be increasingly harder to do if you don't put those things into practice from day one, right? So do that. Take note of all of the wonderful things that you have. Be grateful, right? That's one thing. Another thing, find something that you love, your passion, and don't make it a person. Don't make it a thing like a vice, but make it a hobby or something that you love to do, and do it for yourself. Find yourself. You know what I mean? Take some time, slow yourself down, slow down your expectations. You know what I mean? Like even when you're speaking it to people and somebody asks you, well, when do you think you're going to have this done? Or when do you think you're going to finish this? Or when do you think you're going to be here? Extend that time. You know what I mean? Don't tell them, well, yeah, I'm going to be there at 12, knowing you ain't going to be there till 2. If you think you need more time, give yourself more time. You know what I mean? And take better account of your time, because this is a great time to build up your self-worth, right? Jupiter and Pisces, like this is a really good time to build up your worth about yourself. So take your time, you know what I mean? And also account for your time. What is my time worth? You know what I mean? If somebody if somebody is trying to direct your attention to somebody else, then you're giving up your time literally for free, right? So you're wasting your time and you're giving your time. So you got to figure out how much time that I'm willing to allot to someone else, because this is my worth. Limit it. Limit yourself, which is going to be your greatest gift during the time of Pisces, because there is no limits. Like good people are going to allow you to trip up and remove the boundaries. You have to put the boundaries there. Hey, being practical, almost being Capricorn, Capricornish, Saturnish is going to go so far during this time. Being as practical as you possibly can be. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't allot for fun in your life, but everything has a time and a place. So if you set aside time to have fun, have fun. If you set aside some time to work on a goal, like a book or art or something like that, then set aside that time and devote that time to achieving or working on this thing. Because this is really the time when these things are going to manifest as huge things in your life. So remember that. So I have to go, but I'll definitely be back. And I'm going to come back with more Jupiter and Pisces, because there's so much more to talk about. Especially with the Six of Diamonds. So much more to talk about. But got to limit it a little bit and got to impose those limitations. Peace.